One here. Sorry, I'm just juggling Zoom here. Just give me a sec. All right. I'm Omar Sarang. I'm the Executive Vice President of Government and Regulatory Solutions at DNAnexus. I'm the architect of Precision FDA, and I designed the user interface for the PRISM project, which connects sponsors and agencies to interact around global regulatory standards. I want to talk about trusted regulatory spaces. This is a term that we coined with our partners, Lorenz, some years ago. And it really was looking at how we can connect different islands in the regulatory stakeholder landscape and do it in a way that is acceptable to security, IT, compliance, because in our world, the exchange of information, much like in the financial world that Craig was alluding to, is non-trivial. The information is sensitive. So we want to talk about our concept for a global network for regulatory data interchange built on top of the APIX standard. This is for sponsors and agencies, one workflow, really key, no shared database, and we have a very strong commitment to information living where it belongs. This is actually running in production on the TRS Commons, uh, sponsored by Lorenz and powered by DNAnexus, running out of the AWS Frankfurt region. So what you're about to see is how we use APIX to demonstrate the reality of a global network for regulatory data interchange. We have a product called the Tracker, and it has all of the APIX stuff under the hood, and the Fire subscriptions and tasks and everything that we've been talking about is all under the hood. But we've tried to keep it under the hood and to keep this really as user-friendly experience as possible. You'll see a live tracker coordinating one post-approval change across two sovereign agencies. The sponsor sees a single pane of glass, and each agency only sees its own data, and the joint information request is developed collaboratively between the agencies and returned as one response. The disclaimers here are the sponsor and agency organizations that are shown are illustrative only and do not imply any endorsement. All of the data you'll see is synthetic. This demo, as I said, runs on the TRS Commons and it's powered by the same technology that powers Precision FDA. So the network is a distributed model, and there's always a tension between ease of use and data sovereignty, security, and compliance. The most secure systems are completely useless because nobody can get to the information, but systems that are highly flexible and interchange with fluid ease can be a problem for regulatory data compliance and security. Data sovereignty, where the data lives, is also very critical for agencies. So we'll see a flow where the sponsor files one joint filing to the FDA and EMA. Those two agencies, again, illustrative only, will each accept their role as a lead, as a participant, and the joint information request will travel from the sponsor, one IR, to both agencies. The sponsor coordinates with many agencies through one point of interaction. The agencies practice reliance, reviewing things together, but none of the data gets merged. All the data lives where it's supposed to live. Sponsor data lives in sponsor FDA data lives in the FDA space, isolated only to that sponsor. Sponsor EMA data lives in the EMA space. The same way, it's isolated. And the sponsors tracker is a single pane of glass over the EMA and the FDA space, but there's no data crossover. Data is not bleeding together between sponsors, and data does not bleed together between agencies. One filing, one response out. So you'll see this in action. The joint filing will go out to the EMA and the FDA, who will accept their roles as lead and participant. The joint information request will be developed collaboratively through standard Word-based document red line editing, but all within the Tracker platform. and then one IR that's agreed to will get sent back to the sponsor. The data stays in each agency's space throughout. That's really critical. The sponsor only sees one filing and one request and never gets privy to the agency's deliberation. So the sponsor does not have access to the joint information request area. Similarly, the EMA does not have access to the relationship between the sponsor and the FDA, and the FDA does not have access to the relationship between the sponsor and the EMA, but they are participating on this joint information request. Why this architecture? I talked with our colleagues at the APIX group some months ago, and I realized in 10 years of working with the FDA and integrating with other agencies that there are many, many requirements for regulatory data from an agency perspective, the big one being data sovereignty. Information lives in country. The Swiss Medic, they have their stuff on Azure in Switzerland. In France, they're looking at doing sovereign clouds. Same with Canada. But it is really critical that this patient information lives in country. And it's on the agency's or the sponsor's own cloud account. It's not going to be centrally aggregated to a commercial provider's platform. It just, there are just so many reasons why that will be a challenge that will never be surmounted in our arena. Data separation is foundational. You can't just have the data separation be the responsibility of your client code. So if you have a single pane of glass at your sponsor that can see multiple agencies, you want to make sure that everything is isolated at the platform level so you don't have a risk of your data going the wrong place. From an agency perspective, you will never want to commingle information from multiple sponsors on a system that has an internet-facing endpoint, as for instance. So we have one foundation with APIX under the hood, but it supports many use cases, some of which we've seen here, and some of which we're working on actively with participants on this call, actually. PAX CMC was discussed today, M11, USDM, M4QR2 for quality and labeling, and many more. So the tracker is built to be it'll take on different personalities as it's needed because it's a platform as a service. So if you need an M11 visualizer and validator, sure, it'll all be incorporated into a common user experience. It's built for regulated data, ISO 27001 certified, GDPR data processing agreement in place, and GXP and 21 CFR Part 11 controls at the platform level. So when you're working on the tracker, you inherit all of this underlying compliance and security. Now we're going to go into a live demo, and it's important to state that the actions I'm doing here through the web interface are all available through an open API. And that's important. We've heard many times over that it's great to see things, and I totally believe in web interfaces because humans need to visualize things, but machines would like to speak through an API. So this is all enabled through an API as well. Now let me see. I think I have to stop sharing and pull up my other screen. No, that's not it. Desktop one. Okay. Hopefully we can see the tracker. Just a
Yes, we see
quick,
here from the sponsor. Yeah.
great. So I actually have a few tabs here because, like my colleagues, this is representing the interaction between the sponsor and multiple agencies. But these trackers, these each live where they're supposed to live. So the sponsor's tracker lives wherever the sponsor wants it to on their cloud and their cloud account. The agency's tracker, FDA, lives on the agency side. The data lives on their side. Same with EMA. And then there's a sort of separate landscape, and I call this the agency to sponsor landscape, these three, the sponsor, one agency, another. But there's also the agency to agency landscape. And this reflected here by the agency to agency FDA and agency to agency EMA. These two things are hard boundaries. You do not have the sponsor looking in to the agency to agency, and you do not have agencies looking into other agencies' interactions with sponsors. So that data separation is critical. But let's start right in and just do this application. So I'm going to do a new application for a Sakura Bloom product. I've been working with Sakura Bloom a lot because it's a great CMC use case. I'll select the therapeutic area. And again, remember, this can all be done through a API. This is our product notes for FDA. Select the agency. It's going to be a PAX CMC. And I'll do our application description. Let's make this urgent. I'll set a deadline. And under the hood of this is all APIX tasks. So that's what I'm doing here is actually setting up an APIX task, but you wouldn't know it just looking at it. And that was the objective. And I'm going to request that the FDA be a lead. I'm going to create a piece of metadata that connects the multiple submissions because remember at the ultimately everything is going to go through the gateway at the EMA or at the FDA. So there's not this concept of a single dossier, but the parts of the dossier that can be shared are shared with the agencies and they can be read. The module one will still be there. And so from the FDA side, I'm going to attach an ECTD zip file for this post-approval change. And then I will review my application and create the submission. And what's happening behind the scenes is the whole Fire bundle, the tasks, everything's being created and it's being connected and relayed to the FDA's tracker side. And you can see here, we have waiting for lead acceptance and we have a new submission that's been created. Now, let me go and do the similar thing facing the EMA. And this will be a type 2 major variation change. Also urgent, and let's get that due date set on the 27th of June. And this time I'm going to request that the EMA is the participant and ship the EMA's version of the ECTD over to them. I'm going to select that joint filing link and create the submission facing the EMA. And now we have the two submissions that are linked by the joint filing. You see, I can't really export them yet, and you can see that I've got pending acceptance for the lead and the participant. So let's switch over to the FDA's agency to sponsor, and you can see they've got a notification, new initial submission, task from Bayer, and I'll accept the lead. Similarly, the EMA has a notification, new initial submission task as a participant, and I'll accept the participation. Then back over on the Bayer side, you can see that the pendings have gone and the export button is now active. And this is going to export a joint filing anchor task for the agency to agency interaction as they construct an information request. So I'll go ahead and export that. And let's just take a quick look at the nature of the user interface here. It's all about products, applications, and tasks. That's the hierarchy in here. The pivots, you can look at things by product, by agency, and here we can see that the sponsor has a fan out, we call it, to multiple agencies. We can look at the tasks by status as well. And now our anchor task is exported to our lead, the FDA. You can also look at tasks on a timeline. So let's take a look at everything we're doing with the FDA, for instance. And this ties into that timeline that Craig was showing. And so I can see all the things that I have going on, interactions with the FDA. And then I can also dive down into task detail, and you can see the full details of a subtask. And as Craig was referring to as well, there are hierarchies of tasks, and you can see that this task is based on a parent task. And in the timeline, you can see that as well reflected here, the hierarchies of tasks. The notifications we've already explored to some degree, but let's take a look at connection management. Um, I really want to say this is not a POC. This is running live. And these connections right now are part of the demo setup that I have, but they all work. They all use fire tunnels. They use the precision FDA type spaces that are in trusted regulatory spaces. And in fact, all of this is compatible with precision FDA as well. That's the connection tracker. So let's see now how we build that IR request. So I'm going to come over here to the agency to agency world, and you can see the interagency FDA here, interagency EMA here. Let's hop on down into that collaborative IR development. And the agencies in this space, they have a place to play between themselves where nobody else can see in except the agencies that are assigned to this joint filing. And I can open up my joint filing and find that I have a Word document. I'm going to open the Word document, and then I can make changes in it, save it. We're having a demo moment here. I should have been able to uh, change this and have a history build up on it, but it's not doing that. So suffice it to say that the agencies can use an embedded Word editor with change control and to build up a history of documentation in a single document, all version controlled. And then that document will get pushed back to the sponsor once the agencies have agreed to it. So the agencies both are able to see into that collaboration space and to see the documents in it. And so this is how the agencies collaboratively work together to publish a IR, joint IR back to the sponsor. And then hopping back to the sponsor, we can see in a joint IR, a consolidated information request coming back to them. And here they are able to pick up the document with the edits that came over from the agencies building it. So just to recap, the sponsor created a joint filing, sent it to two agencies who coordinated on it with an embedded editor using Microsoft Word, track changes, all of the same things that people do via email, but all within a constrained space. All of the information for the FDA lives in the FDA's cloud. All the information for the EMA lives in their account. All the information for Bayer lives in a Bayer account. This is a fully distributed network of Fire servers, actually. And all of this, again, is available through the API call as well. So let me just pull up my last slide. And that really just reinforces that the tracker bridges RIM systems to global agencies. The RIM system stays a system of record. Everything's accessible through an open API. And the tracker connects to this network of agencies with each party's data staying in its own account. It's a bridge, not another place to keep regulatory data. It's a place to connect regulatory stakeholders. And that is it for me.
All right.